Good evening and welcome again. If you are returning, and if not, just welcome. So, as the description says, I'm going to be reading the gateway experience from the disclosed documents from the CIA. Now, I have already obviously started to do this. If you go onto my channel, you'll see there's a video previous to this. I've already read through to page number 7. If you'd like to catch up with that, do so. I'll give a full reading on up to that point there, as you can see here. Yeah, number 7, frequency following response. So, just to give a quick recap on what we actually talked about yesterday, it was an introduction from a guy who was asked to provide an analysis and assessment of the gateway process. He then goes into it, explaining what it is and how you can get into it, and how he explains it, in what contexts he explains it, gives some references to people who got involved, etc. And the various couple of different ways that you can advance yourself into the gateway process, which obviously that includes the hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback. So, like I said, we're up to number 7 here. So we shall continue from where we left off yesterday. It was number 6. We read that completely, and we're up to number 7 now, like I said. So, if we're all ready. Sorry, I must point out that I have one person watching as well. So, I just shall say hello in the chat. Hello. And can you hear me correctly, properly? Is it okay? Is it all set up okay? I believe it is. I had a bit of a mic issue yesterday because it was using the laptop microphone and it's not that great. Anyhow, without further ado, frequency following response. So, to achieve synchronization of the brain hemispheres, the hemisync technique, it takes advantage of a phenomenon known as the frequency following response, FFR, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. Therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state but hears sound frequencies, sorry, I've lost myself. Start again, sorry. So frequency following response. To achieve synchronization of brain hemispheres, the hemisync technique, takes advantage of a phenomenon known as the frequency following response, FFR, which means that if the subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. Therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state but hears sound frequencies which approximates brainwave output at the theta level, the subject's brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from the normal beta to theta level. Since the theta level is associated with sleep, the subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state, provided that he does not consciously resist, as the brain strives to entrain its wave frequency output with the one which the person hears. Since these brain waves frequencies are outside the spectrum of the sounds which can be heard in pure form by the human ear, the hemisync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as the brain's capacity for deducing beat frequencies. If the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is at 10 Hz, below another audible frequency played in the right ear, Rather than hearing either of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to hear the difference between them, the beat frequency, thus availing itself of the FFR phenomenon. And using the technique of beat frequencies, the gateway system uses hemisync and other audio techniques employed by the FFR phenomenon to induce a variety of frequencies which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body into a virtual sleep state, and bring the left and right hemispheres into coherence under the conditions designed to promote the production of even a higher amplitude and frequency of the brainwave output. Audio and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompanied various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf to mask the sound frequencies were desirable. In this way, the gateway endeavours to provide the subject with the tools by which he may alter his consciousness based on his own volition over time through the repetitive use of the tapes as to access via initiative means new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness. Okay. So we move down to number 8, the role of resonance. So, however, brain coherence through entrainment to the beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is only part of the reason why the gateway system works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristic of deep transcendental meditative states, which brings out a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental, I'm just going to call it transcendental meditation, if the human heart resonates through the entire, according to Bentoff, this changes in resonance results from elimination of what the medical professional calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. Bentoff describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks into two and into the legs, part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and a new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an interference pattern. So basically, I think you got that there. What he's saying is the heart itself that goes into the biofeed mechanics that we read earlier in this is basically you're training the heart to produce a beat. Yeah, that's what it says, a beat. So in that beat, you can then start to control that beat and produce a resonance, etc. So yeah, these points eventually collide, going down the legs. So by placing the body into a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation in that it places the body in a profoundly relaxed state, that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular, rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. The amplitude of this sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph type instrument, is about 3 times the average of the sound volume produced by the heart when it's operating normally. Didn't know that. So that brings us into number 9, the brain stimulation. Bentoff's biomedical model shows that this resonance is of considerable importance since it is directly transmitted to and impacts upon the brain. The resulting vibration is received and transmitted into the brain itself via the fluid-filled third and left ventricles located above the brainstem. An electromagnetic pulse is then generated, which stimulates the brain to raise the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. Just as Dr. Twenlow observed in his research on the effects of the hemisync tapes, although the brain is contained in a tight membrane called the dura, which is in turn cushioned by a thinner layer of fluid located between it and the skull. As the coherent resonance produced by the human heart is in a state of profound relaxation, reaches the fluid layer surrounding the brain, it sets up a rhythmic pattern. A rhythmic pattern in which the brain moves up and down approximately 0.005 to 0.010 millimeters. Micrometer, you'd need a micrometer to measure that. And that goes in a continuous pattern. The self-reinforcing character of resonant behavior accounts for the body's ability to sustain this movement despite the minimal level of energy involved. In this way, the entire body, based on its own micromotion, functions as a tuned vibrational system which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 Hz into the Earth's ionospheric cavity, which in itself resonates at about 7 to 7.5 Hz. Of this process, Bentoff states, quotes, "This is occurring at a very long wavelength of around 40,000 kilometers, or just about the perimeter of the planet. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electrostatic field in which we are embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate much over larger distances, so it doesn't deteriorate. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: metal, concrete, water, and other fields making up our bodies, in this ideal medium for conveying a telepathic signal." End quotes. So, like I said before, this Bentoff guy, he's done a lot of research on this previously as well, but in different ways. So he brings his own kind of like word into it, etc. Sorry, the cat was crying to get out of the living room. Kicked all the animals out so I can have a bit of peace. Right, okay, so, end quotes. Consequently, the gateway process is designed to rather rapidly induce a state of profound calm within the nervous system and to significantly lower the blood pressure to cause the circulatory system, the skeleton, and all of the physical organ systems to begin with vibrating coherently at approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second. The resulting resonance sets up a regular, repetitive sound wave, which propagates in consonance with the electrostatic field of the Earth. Right, so we're genuinely connected to the perimeter of our planet in a resonance way, is what it's basically saying there. Right. And there's no obstructions. There's no obstructions within that vibrational system. And it transfers energy into a range of hertz, generally between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz. So, number 10, energy entrainment. As the body is turned into a coherent oscillator vibrating in harmony with the surrounding electrostatic medium, the specific exercises included in the gateway tapes enjoin the participant to build up the energy field surrounding his body, presumably by using energy from the Earth's field which the body is now in training because of its ability to resonate with it. This puts the body's energy field into homogeneity, which its surrounding environment, and promotes the movement of the seat of consciousness into the surrounding environment, partly in response to the fact that the two electromagnetic medians are now a single energy continuum. Thus, the same process which moves the brain into focused coherent at steadily higher levels of frequency and amplitude, so as the entrain analogous frequencies in the universe for data collection, also promotes an enhancement of body energy levels to a point adequate to permit the subject to experience an out-of-body movement when he is ready to do so. Brackets. More will be said about this topic later. Okay, close brackets. In addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication activity with other human minds similarly tuned. I can't do this alone, guys. I actually genuinely need somebody else that doesn't live close to me, basically, and who want to jump on board with this, and we can see if this actually is true. Like, if that exactly what I've just read there is true. So basically, we create a carrier wave, and that assists us in our mind to communicate with and communicate basically and have activity with other human minds that are also tuned in at the same time. Okay, so number 11, consciousness and energy. Before our explanation can proceed any further, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind exercises the function known as consciousness, and to describe the way in which the consciousness operates to deduce meaning from the stimuli which it receives. To do this, we will firstly consider the fundamental character of the material world in which we have our physical existence in order to accurately perceive the raw stuff with which our consciousness must work. The first point that needs to be made is that the two terms, matter and energy, tend to be misleading if taken to indicate two distinctly different states of existence in the physical world that we know it. Indeed, if the term matter is taken to mean solid substance as opposed to energy, which is understood to mean a force of some sort, then the use of the former is entirely misleading. Science now knows that both the electrons, which spin in the energy field located around the nucleus of the atom, and the nucleus itself are made up of nothing more than an oscillating energy grids. Solid matter, in the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist. Rather, atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids, which orbit at extraordinarily high speeds. In his book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, Itzhak Bentov gives the following figures. The energy grid which composes the nucleus of the atom vibrates at approximately 10, I don't know why it says 22, is it 10.22? Oh no, 10 over the power of 22 hertz. So which means 10 followed by 22 zeros. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, an atom oscillates at the rate of 10 followed by 15 zeros hertz. An entire molecule composed of a number of atoms bound together in a single energy field vibrates in the range of 9 zeros hertz. A live human cell vibrates at approximately 10 zeros, 10,000 hertz. The point to be made is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all that is, like the universe which surrounds him, nothing more or less than an extraordinary complex of system of energy fields, and so-called states of matter are actually variances in the state of energy and human consciousness. It's a function of the interaction of energy in two opposite states, motion versus rest, in a manner described in the following paragraph. So we move on to the next one. Oh, well, just recap on that, and we'll have a quick delve into that. What he's basically saying is, this sussed out, and it's been made fact that there is no such thing as a solid. Everything's made up of atoms, molecules, etc., and even they have a resonance, a vibration in themselves as well. And they're, as he says there, quote unquote, extraordinarily complex system of energy fields. That's basically what it is. So if everything is just a variant of an energy field, then technically speaking, we're all the same. Everything's the same. Everything's like kind of just on a different vibration. That's all it is. So if you can tune into that vibration, there you go. Number 12, holograms. This is where we're leading into from that basic statement. Energy creates, stores, and retrieves meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding a certain frequencies in three-dimensional mode. That creates a living pattern called a hologram. The concept of the hologram can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentoff, in which he asks the reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which 3 pebbles are dropped. As the ripples created by the stimulus entry of the 3 pebbles radiate outwards towards the rim of the bowl, Bentoff further asks the reader to visualize that the surface of the water is suddenly flash frozen, so that the ripple pattern is preserved instantly. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful, coherent source of light, such as a laser. The result will be a three-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in midair. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, for example, it is possible to take a holographic projection of a glass of swamp water and view it under magnification to see small organisms not visible to the naked eye when the glass of water itself is examined. The whole concept of holography, despite its scientific implications, has only been known to physicists since the underlying mathematical principles were worked out by Dennis Gabor in 1947, and he later won a Nobel Prize for his work. Laboratory demonstration of Gabor's work only occurred years later following the invention of the laser, as biologist Lyle Watson explains. Quotes from Lyle Watson. The purest kind of light available to us is that produced by a laser, which sends out a beam in which all the waves of all one frequency, like those made by an ideal pebble in a perfect pond. When 2 laser beams touch, they produce an interference pattern of light and dark ripples that can be recorded on a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is reflected first off an object such as a human face, the resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but it can still be recorded. The record will be a hologram of the face. Wow. Okay, so skip over to my StreamYard. I can see that Paul's with us. Hey, Paul, how are you doing? If you're rewatching this, by the way, I know there's only me and Paul here at the minute, but if you're coming back to rewatch this, Ranger Paul X here in chat, as you can see there, do pop over to his channel because he does paranormal investigations himself. As earlier, he had a premiere on and he was showing, he was going up to the War Monument. So they're basically trying to do what I'm doing. Exactly, trying to do exactly the same thing as what I'm doing. We're trying to contact or make some physical record or proof of there being something after we pass away. That's inevitably it, like. So, and that is what has led me into doing this as well. Like I said, I'm not joking when I say this, I've done about 20 years research on this, quietly, on my own, in the background, you know what I mean? Not like a full-time job, but obviously, yeah, you know, like we all do. We sit and twiddle our thumbs and we get interested in stuff. And I've had a personal experience as well. So, anyway, let's move on. I hope you've understood that so far. I hope it's making clear sense. Hope you can hear me correctly. I hope the microphone issue has been sorted today. And we shall move on because it is very interesting, this stuff. Number 13, the part encodes the whole. Of further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be the resulting holographic projection, but the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. Excuse me. The key to creating any hologram is that energy in motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. In the foregoing example, the pebbles represent energy in motion, while the water, before its agitation of the pebbles, represents energy at a state of rest. To activate, or in effect, to perceive the meaning of a hologram, energy, in this case a coherent light source such as a laser beam, it must be passed through the interference pattern generated by the interaction between the moving energy and the energy in rest. In the simple example given by Bentov, this requirement was fulfilled by holding the frozen interface pattern in front of the coherent light to produce the three-dimensional holographic image, its meaning, into space. As Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brain Mind Bulletin tells us, quotes, another feature of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bits of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic in the picture which is to come, and it is stored everywhere on the plate. Let's move down a little bit. Let's get that. It's just coming up, I think. Got more pictures, yay! Number 14, the consciousness matrix. The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. According to the theories of Carl Pribhan, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram which tunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchanged, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state in which we call consciousness. With respect to states of expanded or altered consciousness, such as gateway uses, the process operates in the following way. As energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram, it is perceived by the electrostatic fields which comprise the human mind. The holographic images being conveyed are projected upon those electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize with the, therefore, read the energy carrier wave pattern passing through it. I know that's a lot to take in there. Sorry. Transmissions of the universe. Then, to make sense of what the holographic image is saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. Specifically, it does this by comparing the image received with that part of its own hologram which constitutes memory. By registering differences in geometric form and in an energy frequency, the consciousness perceives, see Exhibit 2. All right, yeah, so that's the way the consciousness perceives. As a psychologist, Keith Floyd puts it, I didn't go down. Sorry. But Keith Floyd says, contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. Huh. Okay. All is not as it seems. Basically, what we're saying there. So on the last video, it does actually say he does say to it. There's a good quote from Bentov himself to his son, basically saying, "You're not thinking about this with an open mind. You're only thinking about it with your left brain, the logical side of your brain. What you really need to do is you need to do the hemisync and see all of this from both sides of the brain, the logical and the nuance, holistic side of the brain, the right hand side of the brain, or the right hemisphere." That's basically what he's saying there. So number 15, brain in phase. The consciousness process is most easily imaged if we picture the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it, so that all the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry using mathematics to reduce the data of the two-dimensional form. Bentov states that scientists suspect that the human mind operates on a single binary, like a go, don't go, system, as do all digital computers. Therefore, once it superimposes a three-dimensional matrix over the holographic information it wishes to interpret and reduces that information mathematically to a two-dimensional form, it can then completely process it using its fundamental binary system, just as any computer made by any hand of man can process volumes of data and make various comparisons between the data and information stored in its digital memory. Okay. Our minds operate in the same way. Perceiving by comparison only, Bentov states that the proposition this way, our whole reality is constructed by constantly making such comparisons. Whenever we perceive something, we always perceive differences only. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain, in its holistic, non-linear, and non-verbal mode of the functioning, acts as the primary matrix of the receptor for this holographic input, while, by operating in phase or coherence with the right brain, the left hemisphere of the brain provides a secondary matrix through its binary computer-like method of functioning to screen further the data by comparison and reduce it to a discrete two-dimensional form. Now, there's something within that sparks something in my head as well, because in my early 20s, my ex-girlfriend, the girl I was with at the time, I should say, Nikki, she actually, you know what? Because, like I said, I've been talking about this. I've been doing a lot of research. Do you know what? I've been so into this since I was like young. It's unbelievable. And Nikki and I, we were together for 7 years. So, you know, I did open her mind completely to all of this as well. She was like 18, 19 when we got together. So I was like 21. So we were still very young, and she didn't know anything about none of this. So I give her a lot of nuggets and so on. And she literally, my point being, she literally sat with me one day and she said, "Do you know what? We're just biological robots, really, aren't we?" And I asked her, I said, "Explain." And she broke it down into the terms of, well, our bodies just work on electrical impulses and signals and so on. And this means that you must, like a computer does, it comes up with a command prompt, and that command prompt is initiated by an electrical signal, which then gets sent, and when it reaches its destination, that electrical signal impulse is acted upon. So, and she also said as well, actually thinking about it, she also said as well, when you really look into it, calcium is actually a form of metal. What are our bones most typically made of? Calcium. So if calcium is actually a form of metal, is actually, you know what I mean, it's a type of metal, that's what it comes under on the periodic table, metal, then that kind of means that we have a metal frame with a very complex um, bio biomechanical model onto it. So she wasn't. Do you know what? And it's always stuck with me. 20 odd years that's stuck with me as well. Like genuinely stuck with me that. Um, and she's not wrong as well when you think about it. She's not actually wrong. We are basically biological robots. It's very trippy when you think about that. Anyway, so moving on. Sorry, get caught up in a little tangent on my own there. Number 16. Oh, gone too far. Excuse me. Evaluation. To the extent that the gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement in energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse to the intercession of the physical senses, such that ever more of the universal hologram (brackets not sure of course accessible by the sense perception) can ultimately be perceived and understood by the brain. I'll read that again just because I don't feel like I've read that properly. To the extent that the gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement in the energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse to the intercession of physical senses, such that ever more of the universal hologram can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that the theories of Pribham and Boham appear to the account for all transcendental experiences, paranormal events, and even normal perceptual oddities. Right, okay, yeah. So, yeah, okay. She goes on to say of Pribham, quotes, currently he is proposing at startling, all-encompassing... I'll start again, sorry. Currently, he is proposing a startling, all-encompassing model which is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of the human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to the theoretical physics and accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as part of a nature. Get you. Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of this theory suddenly makes sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages. It does make a lot of sense. You see how they're tying it all up here? They're tying it into each other. So, paranormal and normal, I'll quote, perceptual oddities, which is what I had when I saw the Orb of Light when I was younger. When you go into the gateway, it actually, they merge. They don't become one or the other. They're actually almost the same thing. I see what he's saying there. So, number 17, self-cognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind achieves and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanisms in which accounts for the aspect of the human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e., self-cognition. Humans are not only they don't only know, but they know what they know. I am, therefore I think, therefore I am. You know that one. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative... Lots of pictures! Yeah, we come to the pictures. There's a comparative assessment. Oh, it's gone wonky. Evaluating the functioning of their thought processes against various objective standards that they have adopted. You got to lose that. you gotta kind of reset yourself. You can't have these belief systems that you've had stuck in your head for so long. You kind of got to keep an open mind. You've got to let that go, as it were. The human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram, project them out, perceive that projection, put it through comparison with the memory aspect where its evaluation standards of measure are stored, of its own hologram, and measure or sense the differences using three-dimensional geometry, and then binary, the no-go pulse to yield verbal cognition about the self. You can look in the mirror. Number 18. Time, space, dimension. Oh, this is going to be a head twister, isn't it? And then intervening dimensions is afterwards. Yep, it's going to be an head twister. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to read up to page 14. Yeah, because that'll bring us up to 7 pages each session. That's about right, that. So we'll move on. Time, space, dimension. Number 18. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. Now the fun begins. I'm going to move closer so I can read this properly. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram, which can be accessed in the dimension of time and space as we know it. To explain why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of time-space is the next task which must be addressed. To do this, we must firstly appreciate what time and space are, in order to understand how the dimension that they are constituted can be transcended. Physicists define time as a measurement of energy or force in motion. In other words, it's a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern, so that its confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location, which is distinguishable from other locations or space. Energy, which is not confined in force, without limit, without dimensions, without the limits of form, it is infinitely, cannot move because there is nothing beyond the infinite, and is therefore outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location and is absent from other locations. But if the energy is in the state of infinity, there are no boundaries. There is no here to differentiate from there, no sense of area. Energy in infinity means energy uniformly extended without limit. It has no beginning, it has no end, it has no location. It is conscious force, the fundamental primal power of existence without form, a state of infinite being. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest and therefore cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy in motion out in the various dimensions which make up the active universe. Energy in the state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as the material universe, in which we experience our physical experience of various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness is in altered states of being may gain access. So theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point the perception stops, the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself. Ooh. That wasn't too hard. I kind of understood that. So wonky, this page. Note to self, page 13 is wonky. Number 19, intervening dimensions. Since the absolute is conscious energy in infinity, i.e. without boundaries, it occupies every dimension to include the time-space dimension in which we have our physical experience, but we cannot perceive it. It overlays everything, as do many of the intervening gradients or dimensions through which the energies of the universe pass on their way to and from their home in the state of infinity, the absolute. To enter these intervening dimensions, human consciousness must focus with such intense coherence that the frequency of the energy pattern, which comprises that consciousness, i.e., the brainwave output, it can accelerate it to the point where the resulting frequency pattern, if displayed on an oscilloscope, would look virtually like a solid line. Oscilloscope, that's one of them things the doctor has puts them in your ear and checks your heart rate. Yeah. Achievement of this state of altered consciousness sets the stage for perception of non-time space dimensions because of the operation of the principle in physics known as Planck's distance. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any oscillating frequency, such as a brainwave, reaches 2 points of complete rest with constituting boundaries of each individual oscillation, i.e., movement up or down. At these points of rest, an oscillating wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. It is also true that when, for infinitesimally brief instant, that energy reaches one of its 2 points of rest, it clicks out of time-space, joins infinity. Right, okay, so yeah, but it is also true that when for infinity brief instance, that the energy reaches one of its 2 points of rest and it clicks out of time space and joins back to infinity. Okay, that critical step out of the time space occurs when the speed of oscillation drops below 10. Is that minus or plus now? So it's 10 with 33 zeros, centimeters per second, the Planck's distance. To use the words of Bentov, quotes, quantum mechanics tells us that when distances go below Planck's distance, which is minus 10 with 33 zeros in front of it, that's what it means, we enter in effect a new world. To return to our case in point, the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such high frequency that the pattern of clickouts comes to close, that there is a virtual continuity in it. Then a portion of that consciousness is actually postulated to establish and maintain its information collection function in those dimensions, located between time and space and the absolute. Thus, at the almost continuous click-out pattern, it establishes itself in continuous phase at speeds below the Planck's distance, but therefore reaching the state of total rest. Human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time-space after the fashion of Alice being in her journey in Wonderland. The gateway experience, with its associated hemisync technique, is apparently designed, if used systematically and patiently, to enable human consciousness to establish a coherent pattern of perception in those dimensions where speeds below Planck's distance apply. This holds true irrespective of whether the individual is exercising his consciousness while his physical body or whatever, or whether he is doing so after separated that consciousness from the physical body. So if you do meditation, hypnosis, biofeedback, they're the fundamentals to get into this, like it says at the beginning. Okay, so let's have a little look. Does that finish on this page? Yes, it does. Number 20 finishes on this page. So we'll read number 20 and then we'll wrap it up. I'll put the link out. I don't know if you want to you want to join? Do you want to jump up? Are you still watching? I don't know if you're still there. Invite. Copy. Copied. I'm going to post that. Paste it. You don't have to have your camera up. It can be audio only if you wish to. I know there's only Paul watching there at the minute, so got any questions or anything, feel free to jump up. I'm delving into this myself personally as well, so this is all pretty new to me, this part of it anyway, what I'm reading. And I am going to be using this. I am using it already. I've done up to wave 3 of the gateway experience. That's where I'm up to. I'm up to wave 3. So if you really truly, and I genuinely mean this as well, if you are truly wanting to contact somebody that's passed away in your life, or was from your life even, sorry, I believe this is one of the ways to help you to do that. So, but yeah, anyway, so I'll read this number 20, these subatomic particles, and I'll wrap it up, and we'll leave it for another. I might even do one tomorrow as well, actually. I really want to get this read and I want to get this done. So, right, moving along, number 20, page 14. Subatomic particles. The behavior of a subatomic particles provides an interesting example of the phenomenon of clicking out, as discussed in the preceding paragraphs. In an article prepared for Science Digest magazine, Dr. John Gliedman mentions the way in which subatomic particles communicate with each other once their energy fields become entrained as a result of colliding with each other. The communication concerned is, of course, the postulated to be occurring during the click-out phase. In the oscillation of the fields comprising the subatomic particles concerned, it is this cause that accounts for the cross-communication at which, in terms of time-space velocities, would seem to involve speeds in excess of light. In reality, Einstein's theory of relativity is not being invalidated, but rather the communication concerned is taking place outside the dimension of time-space to which the theory of relativity is strictly confined. Specifically, John Gliedman tells us, brackets, quantum theory postulates a kind of long-range Siamese twin effect over two subatomic particles. When they collide and they go their different ways. Even when the particles are halfway across the universe from each other, it says they instantaneously respond to each other's actions, and in doing so, they violate relativity's ban on faster-than-light velocities. Indeed, regarding attempts to quantify what is known about the behavior of energy in dimensions apparently outside of time and space, is different. Bentov speaks out, brackets again. Courageous physicists who are working on hypothetical particles known as tachyons, which we now know are real, which can move at speeds higher than the light speed. The speed of tachyons starts just above the speed of light and ranges all the way to infinite velocities. So, again, that's brilliant. It ties in so much with what I've been saying. So, as I mentioned on Paul's little premiere earlier on, now I don't have any issues. I don't have any thing against anybody going off and doing what they do in this paranormal investigation world. We all have our own ways to do things, etc., etc. But I must point. I did make a little joke on your channel there earlier, Paul, and I was basically saying like, so put yourself in a afterlife situation. You put yourself there. You've passed away, right? You know you've passed away, and all of a sudden you're in a different realm, right? This realm, in my opinion, is what I've just read there. It's not on a light, but you're not a light body anymore. You're not made of particles and atoms anymore. You're not a holographic projection of yourself. You are just pure consciousness. It's pure consciousness, as in the vibration and the seismic activity of the universe itself. Maybe, and I'm going off what I'm relating to now is when you compare the image of a brain scan with an image of the universe as a picture, when you overlay them two, they're so similar. It's unbelievable. No joke. Go and have a look for yourself. You'll soon see. Your head will be blown out. I'm not joking. So that in itself, that projects back to me, saying, as I'm saying about the little joke on your channel. Picture this: you've passed away. You're now in a different existence of being. You're in a consciousness state of being. You can think about anything you want and go there, like at the blink of a thought. Yeah, just the thought of doing something, and you're there. Would you? I mean, come on now. You personally, if you had this ability to go anywhere, do anything, understand everything, etc., etc. I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to be hanging around my grave. I'm not just going to sit around hanging around my grave, am I? No. I'm going to be off. I'm going to be going traveling and seeing all my other family and searching for the light. Or maybe even coming back here again into this holographic consciousness being that we are. Possibly. I don't know. Obviously, I can't say. But yeah, it kind of tickles me sometimes. Thinking that people are going to be hanging around, spirit-wise, etherical-wise, etc. I get it, and I did have that belief in my head for a very long time as well. But I don't know. I think you have to tune yourself in to actually see these things. You have to have a belief system set out. You have to train the brain into wanting to go there and how to get there. And that's what, like I said, that's what brings me here anyway. So, feel free, if you wish, pop on, ask anything you wish. Let's have a little chat about it if you want to. I mean, if not, don't worry. It's okay. But yeah, it's honestly, I'm getting so into all of this. It's unbelievable. And we're 14 pages in, so we're approximately halfway through this now. I will go back and recap on it. I am going to do a lot more studies onto it. As I said, the Gateway experience it's out there, it's available. I've downloaded the assessment and analysis, this what we've got on the screen here. I've downloaded it myself personally, so I've actually got a hard copy of it to keep. So if anybody else needs that, just let me know. I'll send it over to you or point you in the direction that you need to be in to get this. But also, yeah, I mean, there's so much to go into this. If you've never done meditation, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've never done meditation. This process, this Gateway experience process, this helps you to get into that. But meditation it's a benefit to have, just like hypnosis. It's a benefit, and the biofeedback, they all complement going into this Gateway experience, which is it's related to like remote viewing, out of body experiences, all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, so it basically tunes you into being able to tap into that sort of that stuff. I hope. No, I do. I believe I've got an open mind to it anyway. So that's why we're here. We're going to give it a shot.
Other than that, I don't see anybody jumping up, so I shall, for now, leave it there. I thank you for joining me. It'd be very nice if you tickle that little like and hit the subscribe. It'd be fantastic. Thank you very much. And I think we'll call it there. Yeah. So, thank you for coming along. Thank you for listening. There shall be more. Stay around. Stay tuned. See where we go with this. Hulu.